Hey gang, Tom and Mark here from Murphy&Dickey, here to go over the calibration of a pH system. What we're going to do today is first take a brand new probe, clean, rinse it, place it in pH 7 buffer, program the analyzer, rinse, place it in 4 buffer, program it, and complete the calibration.
That sounds pretty simple, Mark. So why do we use a 2-point calibration?
You want to do a 2-point calibration because you need to zero and span every instrument. In the case of pH, the sensor sees a millivolt signal. pH 7 is approximately 0 millivolts. pH 4 is approximately 180 millivolts. So you want to zero and span the instrument so it's ready for use in your process.
Okay, so the first step you said was to clean the sensor?
Correct. You want to pull it out, clean and rinse it.
Okay, now this is a newer sensor, so it looks pretty clean already. What if it were caked up with process material or something like that? How would you clean that?
Then you want to clean it. Simple bet is use a rinse bottle, some clean DI water or tap water, rinse it off. If it's a little more aggressive, sludgy, cakey, oily, you want to take some dish soap and water and either rinse it off, scrub it off, or use a light toothbrush and clean that material off and rinse it.
So in the calibration menu on this particular analyzer, like many, it offers a selection of automatic or manual calibration. What do you prefer?
I prefer to do a manual calibration. pH probes, you need to be patient when doing the calibration. Automatic calibration is generally a software sequence. After a certain time, it's going to take the value. As probes are used, they tend to respond a little slower and you need a little more patience on the calibration, adjusting to buffer and millivolt signal changes. That's why I prefer a manual calibration, because you can give it a little extra time and give it a more stable reading.
Okay, so I'm going to choose manual here. Go into our calibration mode. Another question before we begin, temperature. There's a lot of talk about temperature and pH. What kind of effect, if any, does temperature have on pH measurement?
Temperature has a big effect because all of our online pH sensors are temperature compensated. Therefore, the readings are affected by changes. Each sensor has a temperature sensor built within the body. You need to let that sensor come down to the same temperature as your buffer. Otherwise, you're going to give yourself an unstable calibration and it will give you erratic readings while in process.
Okay, now in this particular case, we have all our buffers and wash solutions at room temperature and preparation. Make a quick video, but sometimes when it comes out of, say, a hot process or something like that, we're going to need to cool the sensor, correct?
The best thing to do is if your temperature of your probe has been elevated above ambient, is just pull it out, put it in a container of water, and let it cool down to room temperature.
Now, how stable does the temperature have to be? I mean, if it fluctuates at 0.1, 0.2, 0.3 degrees Fahrenheit or Celsius, should I be concerned?
No, not too bad. But if it starts getting to be 2 to 3 degrees fluctuation or above ambient, wait a few extra minutes for it to come down.
Okay. Well, that being said, we're all ready to do the calibration. So what it says here is place the sensor in the first buffer. In this case, it's going to be the 7 buffer, and then we can adjust the instrument from there. Now, why do we start with a 7 buffer?
Again, pH sensors see a millivolt signal. When the probe is placed in the buffer solution, a millivolt signal is generated. 7 buffer to a pH sensor is 0 millivolts. It's your baseline.
Okay. So we're going to do that. So first thing I'm going to do, tells me here that I got a 6.77 pH in a 7 buffer. So I'm going to adjust that to 7. And this analyzer is pretty quick. Some of them take a little bit longer to register, but then again, our temperatures here are all stable. So it says place the sensor in the 2nd buffer, and I notice that it skipped a part of the process. What we want to do in between is we do still want to clean off that sensor as we go into the next buffer. Okay, it takes just a few seconds.
You don't want to contaminate one buffer solution in your other buffer solution.
Okay. This buffer I'm using is a 4 buffer. And why should I use a 4 buffer or a 10 buffer when I'm doing pH?
we prefer to use a 4 buffer. 4 buffer, as I said, is a positive 180 millivolts approximately. It's a stronger signal. Also, 10 buffer tends to not store well over time. So therefore, 10 buffer is a one and done. Use it once, throw it out. 4 buffer is much more stable and a stronger signal. That's why we prefer that buffer.
Okay, so there we go. And now I got a question for you, Mark. How often should we calibrate a system?
I recommend that you calibrate your pH system. When you first get it, check it at least once a week. That means pull the probe out, clean, rinse it, and place it in 7 buffer. If it's plus or minus 1/10 of a pH unit, you know that it's still stable and move on. If it's more than a few tenths away from your pH 7 buffer, then you'll need to recalibrate. If it takes a week or two before it starts drifting more than a few tenths from 7, now you'll know how often your calibration procedure will be. So you can expand it to once every 2 weeks. Maybe it becomes once a month. But to start with, start once a week, at least just checking it, and then go from there.
Well, thanks, Mark, for answering our questions.
And there you have it, gang. A 2-point calibration of a pH system. If you have an application for pH and you'd like us to take a look at it, feel free to give us a call. We'd be happy to help you out.